If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, aging. In this episode, I'm joined by former student and personal trainer Kandace White and her client Sue. Kandace is owner of Seraphim Fitness in Salem, Oregon, and a professional mountain biker. Sue has a unique story about her fitness journey. She is a kidney donor who started lifting weights as prehabilitation and now aspires to become a powerlifter. Listen as they share their wisdoms for aging well. All right, so I have a special treat today on the podcast where I get to have one of my former students on to talk a little bit about her business, but also one of her clients who has a really interesting story to tell about why she got involved in exercising and what the results have been on that. So we'll just start with kind of getting a little bit of background from both of them. Let's start with Kandace. My first guest is Kandace White, who again is a former student of mine from Western Oregon University, now has her own business in Salem, Oregon called Seraphim Fitness. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got to where you are.
Yeah. Well, I graduated from Western in 2009, actually. And I actually remember when we were doing studies with the soleus muscle, we were trying to test it out with all the electrodes, trying to shock it. You remember that?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was fun. But anyway, so graduated from Western Oregon, and I ended up helping open up several gyms around the area and did more like supervising and had a blast with it. And then I actually went and lived over at the coast over in Newport for a little while. And I did cardiac and pulmonary rehab at the hospital. And I loved that job. It was so much fun. I had a blast with my patients. And it was just very interesting, all the information I was digging into and getting into with that aspect of kind of like the medical side. And so I really like doing the testing aspect of that and really kind of like just digging into another side of exercise science in terms of like a rehab situation. And so, but my main goal was to actually be a PE teacher. So that was kind of like, I had a little bit more of like the therapy background that I was really digging into. And I kind of wanted to actually get into orthopedic surgery. So I wanted to be a surgeon after I was going to work at the hospital because I was like, oh, this is super interesting. But I still kind of had a pull to do PE teaching since that was kind of where I was. The foundation of my education at Western was for exercise science and PE. So I actually stopped working at the hospital and went and transitioned over to Willamette. And so I got my teaching license at Willamette University with my master's degree. And as soon as I got out, I went down and worked at Southern Oregon, and I was the head PE teacher down there, and I taught health. And then I brought Avid. If you guys know what Avid is, I brought Avid down to Southern Oregon, but they didn't have it. So I helped kind of start that in the middle schools, and we ended up branching it out into the high school. So it was really cool to see that, and really kind of just an amazing atmosphere for students and kids, because we had some students who were flunking out of schools, and they ended up wanting to jump into Avid. And one of my middle school kids actually like chatted and talked about to the whole like superintendent, big board and all that stuff. He kind of talked his story and said like he joined Avid and he absolutely loved the just kind of what it gave him, just a goal or an idea of where to go down the road for himself. And he ended up like pulling himself out of these F's and D's and was going into like A's and B's in school. And he felt like he actually had something to look forward to. So it was pretty amazing to kind of see like what teaching could do in general. So I'm very thankful I got into that and was able to help with that kind of aspect. But when I was teaching, I've always had a competitive spirit. And so I ended up getting into racing mountain bikes. And so now I'm racing as a pro level mountain biker for downhill and enduro. And so in the summer times, what I would do is compete. And but as a teacher, you don't really work in the summer times. And so I was like, well, I can race, and then I'd also like to open up kind of a side business. And this was actually kind of the beginning of COVID when it all started. And so there was sometimes where it'd be like, okay, well, you're teaching online like this, and you're chatting with your students, but you still don't really get that like one-on-one very much. And so I missed that quite a bit. And so I was like, well, shoot, it'd be fun to open up a gym. And my husband was like, absolutely not. And I was like, oh, it'd be fun because we can just do this, on the side. And I've done it before, and I did personal training, and I love the job. And he was just like, no, you know how much money that's going to cost. And he's a financial advisor. So he's like sitting there punching numbers, and he's like, no way. And so I'm going, well, if it's just a side business, I could just do it for fun. And so we ended up having long conversations. And we came down to the fact of if I do open up this business, I have to figure out. It was kind of the side gym of like I would open it up in the garage so I could go work out. And mostly because most of the gyms I was working out at were closing down. And I like smaller gyms. I like it to be a little bit more like an intimate feeling. And the gyms I was going to that was like that, especially with COVID, just kept getting shut down over and over and over again. And so that was kind of the start of all of it. And so it wasn't necessarily the business aspect. I wasn't necessarily looking to start the business in terms of making it big or exploding or whatever. I just wanted to kind of have fun and enjoy it because I liked it so much. And so, anyways, started out with the idea of just like a home gym, and we opened it up, and then all of a sudden it went to like, hey, let's build a whole side area on our property of a gym. And he's like, no. And it kind of went from there. And we've definitely gone like back and forth on like, well, I want to make it a bigger gym, and he wants to make it a smaller gym. And so we kind of worked together and made it a medium-sized gym. And so it just kind of we had a blast with it all because we ended up building it really kind of like ourselves with like our friends who are contractors and all that. And so it was just a whole another journey that we didn't really plan on jumping into, or like knowing what was going to lead us down the path of whatever happened. And so when we got the facility up, and I had registered the business in terms of like, okay, maybe a couple clients, like I was saying. Um, and so I did. I got a few clients that I was working with online, because I work online and I also work in person. And so I had a couple I was working with online, and then I had a couple I was working with in person, just kind of a one-on-one, just really small setting. And it just kind of grew, and it kept growing, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm just going, okay, I need to figure out if I'm going to teach next year, because it's getting to the point where with racing, like it works. And what's great about racing is like I could plan like what days I would be training and what days I'd be going out to race. And so I just come back in the summer. But in terms of like the school year, like I got to be Monday through Friday. And so I can't really do that with the schedule I had for people who wanted to come in at a certain times. And so because with my setting, it's like somebody picks an hour, they come in, and that's their specific scheduled hour. And I plan their exercises based on like what they need and kind of their background in general. It's very specialized for them, like very specific to them. And so like they come in and they chat with me like, hey, I'm doing training for an ultra marathon. This is what I need. This is my background. This is like, and I'll watch to see how they lift and how they move, and to make sure that they don't need any kind of corrective movement in the very beginning. Because that's going to be kind of the foundation to build the strength off of that. But so it just kind of depends on like what the person needs specifically. So, but anyway, so the hours theirs. And, that being said, like sometimes some people will want to work with another person. So sometimes I like to add no more than 4 people's kind of pushing it in my gym, but, um, I like to do like 1 to 2, and just so that way I can really hone in and watch people's movements in general. Because sometimes like they'll know how to move, but then they'll be kind of like, oh man, this kind of feels weird on my shoulder, and then it's like they just need to move like this much of a degree to the right side, or with the external rotation. It just kind of depends, but. So I like to keep my eye on people pretty closely. But anyways, so the schedule kept building and getting bigger, and just got to the point where I decided that I wanted to go kind of with the new adventure of the business, and see where that led me. So we're still going down that path, and I'm having a blast. So
That's awesome. Because as you know, I always try and teach that entrepreneurial spirit in my
I know.
classes. I want people to go out and be creating jobs as opposed to, being employed by somebody. And
For
there's so much
sure.
we can do
It's
on our
super
own.
scary too. Like when I
Oh,
first started, I was going, "Oh, I don't know. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to." Because now you're relying on the ups and downs of business, not a consistent paycheck, and that's scary, especially with COVID like hitting, and you don't really know what's going to happen next.
yeah.
And for me, I was like, "This is nuts. Like this is just not smart." And so I'm just going, you know what? Like I'm feeling like I don't know, you get that internal drive where you're going, I'm going to hit this and I'm going to try and hit it hard. And you just feel like it's right, either at that moment or later on. But it just felt like I was directed in the path I needed to be on, and it felt really good. So I went with it.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. And we have one of your clients here. We're not going to give her last name for kind of personal reasons, but we have Sue on board. So, Sue, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be training with Kandace and why you were training with Kandace.
Yeah, so I'm Sue, and I am not a stranger to exercise, but I hadn't exercised as much as I should have in the last few years. I am in my late 50s, and I actually came to Candace, and I will say it was from your referral, Jeff, but I reached out to Jeff because I had decided that I was going to donate one of my kidneys. Many years ago, I had a friend who had kidney disease and she was on dialysis. And I saw her life when she was on dialysis, and it sucks. Dialysis is really hard. And I also saw her life after she received a kidney from a living donor who was a friend of hers. And at the time, I didn't even know that was like a thing that you could do. But I watched how much her life changed and improved. And this was like 20 years ago. And so it was kind of on my radar screen for a really long time, but I could not begin to figure out how you actually donated a kidney to somebody. Um, but as we were coming out of COVID, I actually, right before we went into COVID, I had been doing a little bit of research on this. And then going into COVID, it kind of shut that down because so much of the medical sector was just shut down to anything that was vaguely elective. But coming out of COVID, it suddenly occurred to me that I might be too old to do this. And I had this feeling of actually disappointment. I thought if I didn't even try, how disappointed I would be in myself if I didn't even try to do this thing that I thought about doing for so long. So I actually reached out to the local transplant center and entered into their screening process. And as I made my way through, I discovered I was clear of all the cancer screenings. My blood work looked good. My kidney function looked good. I still had a whole bunch of other stuff for them to look at. But as I came out of that screening, I realized that I was looking at major surgery. That if I were going to do this, this would be major surgery. And I wasn't afraid of the surgery, but I wasn't looking forward to recuperation. And I was actually, maybe I even was just a little bit afraid that the surgery would be really hard and it would be hard to recover. And this is and I remembered something that I had read, something I had read in the 80s. And this is a little embarrassing, but it was in the Jane Fonda workout book. So I'm no stranger to exercise, going all the way back to the 80s. But Jane Fonda wrote about one of her instructors who had been, I think, standing in line at a movie theater and a car hit her. And she was really badly injured in this accident. And the doctors were incredibly surprised by how fast she recovered. And they attributed it to her fitness. And I remembered that and I thought, well, maybe I could be fitter. I have months to go before I have the surgery, if in fact it comes to pass. I have months to go and maybe I could be healthier and fitter. And I actually Googled surgery, prepare, and exercise. And what came back was this idea of prehab or prehabilitation. And when I looked into what they were recommending for prehabilitation, it was things like, stop smoking 30 days before your surgery and walk 30 minutes a day. And as a non-smoker who already walked at least 30 minutes a day, that didn't really advance my project very much. And so, Jeff, that's when I reached out to you. And I just said, look, I think I may be having some surgery. And can you recommend a personal trainer who could work with me to prepare me to be as strong as possible going into the surgery so that I could be as strong as possible coming out of the surgery? And you came back with Kandace's name. And it turns out that Kandace's gym is like 12 minutes from my house. I know that because I leave my house at 7:48 a.m. to get to her house at 8 a.m. But so you recommended Kandace to me, and I reached out to her through her website and just filled out the little form. I never fill those little forms out, but that was apparent. It felt more comfortable to do that than to just cold call somebody and try to explain things. And I just said I looked like I was going to have surgery in the spring and I wanted to be as healthy as possible. And I met with her and explained my situation, explained what my goals were, which were basically just to be stronger. It's not like a quantitative long-term goal, but I felt like there were things I could work on, especially I had some balance issues. And I really wanted to have some support with strength training. And I felt like if I was going to prepare for this, and it was important enough that I would do better if I did this with somebody else's help. So that is actually how I ended up at Kandace's door of her beautiful little gym. I had never set foot in a gym before. I have hiked, I have biked, I walk, I exercise, but I've never set foot in a gym before. And so it was really lovely to just have it be me there and her and this equipment and somebody who had a plan for me to achieve what it was I was going after.
And most gyms aren't as nice looking as Kandace's is. So I'm really impressed with the design of that.
Hey, thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, most of the gyms I'm used to are kind of the concrete walls and, not really clean and all that kind of fun stuff.
Well, honestly, I'm about the same too. I like that aspect of like the gym that's just raw. But when we were building it, it's kind of funny because we were going to put plywood just backing on the wall. And when my husband and I went down to Home Depot to build with the building supplies, buy the building supplies, we were looking at the pricing of the plywood, and it was more expensive than it was cedar boards. And we were like, we'll just buy cedar boards. It just makes more sense. And it smells good in the gym, not like a, yeah.
Now, so I also want to know, so you have that experience with Jane Fonda. So did you wear your leggings to the first workout?
I think I probably showed up in my leggings and a t-shirt for about 80% of the workouts. And I also have these cute little Title IX gym skirts. So they're skirts with shorts under them. I show up in those also.
Nice. So Kandace, tell us a little bit about how then you approached your preparation for training Sue because I didn't know that that's the reason why Sue had approached me about. In fact, I didn't know until well after the fact that the kidney had been donated and received that is why she had reached out to finding a personal trainer. So what was your approach and, What was your experience with training Sue? I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging.
Sure. So with Sue, first of all, she's like a major go-getter. So she's totally ready to just go for whatever it is that I'm like, hey, let's try this. She's like, okay, let's try it. And so it's been a blast, like just helping coach Sue with a bunch of different stuff. And we've gone into different aspects as of now, which we'll probably get into in a little bit. But when we first started, usually what I do is I do like more of a movement screen right off the bat, kind of see like how people move in general or kind of where their fitness levels are at with their endurance. And so what I'll do is I'll just test them out with a fitness test. And some of it's basic and some of it can be a little complex depending on where somebody's at. So like, for example, if I had somebody who was coming to see me who was like, hey, I have a shoulder problem. I would love to get some more strength in my shoulder. What I would do is more of a mobility test versus a fitness test in terms of like endurance or like strength and conditioning kind of a thing, right? Whereas if I had somebody who was like, hey, I want to donate a kidney, like I'm going to test them out with a little bit more of how their muscular endurance is in general, just because, as well as cardio, because with cardio, it's really important that your heart is strong to be able to come out of the recovery. So that way you have good blood flow and function, especially with kidneys, right? And so with her, I just started out nice and easy and did more of like a functional building block. And so we went from there and started building off of like I did more less weight and then more reps to start off the bat, right off the bat anyways. And so we began there. We added a little bit of cardio base. I don't do like treadmill running or anything in my gym, but what we do is a little bit more high reps, and we just kind of get the heart rate up with movements, whether it be like maybe a slam ball or maybe some dumbbell snatches or something like that, right? And then she would progress really fast. And she got strong and was doing a great job. And she's like, I think I can do more weight on the next one. So I'm like, okay, go for it. And so we'd be watching her heart rate to make sure it was staying at the level or zone that she needed to be at for her own self. And so I monitor that as well. And she'd come in with her little heart rate monitor. And in my, what's cool about my timer is that on the wall, there's a big timer that's hanging on it. And it's a Bluetooth. So it receives a Bluetooth reading off of anybody's heart rate monitor that is Bluetooth in general. And so we would turn that on and then we would make sure. And so sometimes we'd play this little game like, where are we at? Well, let's look, And so we just had fun with that. But essentially, like she would build and gain that strength. And then the next time she'd come in and I switch up my exercises quite a bit. I don't do the same thing every single day. So we'll do something different every time she comes in. So as we're mixing it up, we're like, hey, what did we do last time? Because what I do is write down or I record on my computer how much weight she did on whatever exercise she's doing. So a lot of times I'll look back and see, hey, this is where we were at last time. And then this is where we're at now. And she just make these significant gains. And it was pretty amazing to watch and see. And then it came down to, okay, now it's time to go into surgery. And I remember when she went in and she had the surgery done and she texted me like a couple days afterwards and she's like, I'm out walking. And I'm like, oh my God, like how much walking? And she's like, around my backyard several times. And I'm like, okay, are you doing all right? And she's like, I feel great. And I'm like, good. So it was comical, but also I was like a little nervous because I didn't want her to overdo it, especially after surgery. But she's like, nah, I'm good. Let's go. And so I'm going, okay, this is good. But also like, okay, let's monitor this and make sure that the next day she's feeling good too,
Yeah.
So, but she's a fireball. She comes in and she's like, I want to do more weight every single time. And it's pretty amazing. And what we'll do as well is like track to see how hard it was. So I have a scale, the scale 1 to 10. And so we'll give her a rating based off of how hard the exercise was with that weight. And a lot of times she'll be in like about the 8 zone, which is where I want her to be. And yeah, every single time she just totally comes in and crushes it. So it's pretty fun to watch.
So Jeff, I realized through all of this that in fact it was deeply embedded in my identity that I would be the best 58-year-old organ donor ever. That it was like super important to me that this go well.
And it did. It was awesome. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm really curious. So how many 58-year-old voluntary organ donors? I mean, obviously, people, have it on their license plate and, horrific accident or something takes their life, they donate their organs. But a living donor at our age, because we're about the same age, I think it's pretty unusual. So I'd be curious, just what are the statistics? You may in fact be the best 58-year-old organ donor out there.
So I would say I'm probably not the best 58-year-old organ donor out there. I actually had these conversations with the surgeons a couple of times. I think that it was less risky for me to donate my kidney at 58 than it would have been for me to donate my kidney at 40 when this first hit my radar screen. Because when you're 40, you have so much more ahead of you, and I now know what those 18 years of health look like. But I wouldn't know at 40 whether I was going to develop heart disease, whether I was going to develop kidney disease. You just don't know at that age. But by the time you're 58, now I am probably 2/3 of the way, half to 2/3 of the way done with my life. And so the calculus of all of it is different. I do think that there are statistics. It's not that unusual for someone in their 50s to donate an organ voluntarily, a living donor. It is, and in some ways, I actually feel more comfortable. I felt pretty comfortable with my age and doing this now with so much of my stuff behind me. It really felt qualitatively different. I
That's
will say
interesting.
that I didn't really look up a lot of the specific statistics till after the surgery, but one of the things that surprised me, and maybe it shouldn't have. So the transplant center where I had the surgery done has done 1,500 live kidney donations in the last 20 years. And of those, only 15 have been non-directed. So I did not have a donor in mind. So only about 1% were people saying, just give my kidney to somebody who needs it. And I think that for a lot of people, the thought of having this kind of surgery for someone that you don't know, maybe that seems alien or odd. It didn't seem alien or odd to me, but it did result in someone from the deceased donor waiting list getting a kidney and not having to wait for somebody to die, basically.
Yeah, that to me is very admirable. It's easy to give it to someone because you know who you're helping, but when you're doing it for somebody that you don't know, I think it's got to be a hard thing. But
So, Jeff, I honestly, I thought of it differently. I think that it could be really hard to give it to someone you do know because now your relationship with them is even more weighted with this thing that happened. And to put it humorously, one of my friends said, well, you'd be sitting there and you'd be like, why are you eating French fries? Stop eating French fries. And I
that's
would
my
have that.
kidney you're feeding up.
That's my kidney you're using. I didn't, I was really glad. I don't know that the recipient, I know their outcome was good in the immediate aftermath. That's all I know. And that's all I need to know. I didn't feel a great need to know who it was or to feel connected to them. In fact, I kind of preferred not to be because I felt like it could kind of mess with the relationship. I also I had reached the age where I no longer thought it was appropriate for me to wait for someone to need my kidney because at some point your shelf life is over.
Yeah.
I think that the transplant center that I worked through, the age limit is 70. So I still had 12 more years left. But you could wait forever for someone to need your kidney, and in the end, you don't give it to anybody.
Yeah.
And I figured that since there is no kidney disease in my family either, so I wasn't waiting for someone in my family to get a disease that we expected because of genetic reasons. So, and thank you for thinking it was admirable. I got so much out of this. And I have told Kandace this over and over again. I got way more out of this than I put into it by giving that kidney away. So
what are you doing now with fitness? Are you still keeping at it?
I am. So I went back to see Kandace in the gym 3 weeks to the day after the surgery. I had promised the surgeons that I would not strain the abdomen when I did this. And I saw her once a week through the month of June, which was the month after my surgery. And now we're back to twice a week. And Kandace jokes about things, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
That sounds like a good idea. I should have known she was kidding all along. So I want to get stronger. I want to lift heavier weights, and I have this vision sometime around my 60th birthday of entering a powerlifting competition and just
Sweet.
seeing how that goes.
legit. Yes, I'm excited. You're gonna see her on the powerlifting competition poster here pretty soon.
Well, we'll have to schedule that episode now, and be in preparation. You got something to look forward to, and then I have a future episode.
Yep. Yeah. It was even after the assessment. So the first visit with Kandace, she does an assessment, and it was, measurements, but also squats and push-ups, which did not go well. And just all the exercise assessments. But even after that one visit, I was like, I felt so good after all the little tests. And so I worked with her for about once a week for the first 6 weeks. And I'm like, I think we should do this twice a week. And so it just feels really good. It makes me really happy to do this. It gives structure and a rhythm to my life. I can put my suitcase in the overhead compartment of an airplane without any difficulty. I haven't fallen over. My balance is much improved. My flexibility is a lot improved. I'm just stronger than I was. And I came out of the surgery. I had sent a picture to a bunch of friends of mine. There's this picture of me in Minto Brown Park in Salem. And I had walked 10,000 steps that day. And that was 6 days after the surgery. And it was because Kandace had worked with me so consistently and regularly over those months that I was strong enough to do that.
Nice. So powerlifting, that sounds exciting. My goal with powerlifting is to probably wait until my 80s. And my goal is to just kind of maintain until I get to that point. And if I can just maintain kind of the strength that I'm at now, then I'll just outlive most of the competition, and then I can be an elite athlete. So that's kind of my goal.
I really, 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 really like the bar. That the bar makes me happy. And the first time I encountered it, I think it was like Yates Row, and I'm like, ooh, these are fun. So I like the heavy lifting. It's hard, but and I had told Kandace this, one of the advantages of having done this 8 months of strength training going into the surgery, the hardest thing post-surgery is getting out of bed, because you've had abdominal surgery and like you do this log roll thing, but no matter what, it hurts to get out of bed. But you have to get out of bed to walk around so that all the other aches and pains will go away. And those last 2 or 3 reps that are hard were excellent preparation, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, for what it's like to get out of bed after surgery. And I didn't realize I was preparing myself for that, but I was able to reframe a lot of stuff that people might call pain. I experienced it as discomfort. And when I defined it as discomfort, it was far more tolerable and I could work through it and I could see like the path out of it.
That's a great attitude. And I hope the listeners are kind of hearing that. Those that might be a little bit more apprehensive about starting lifting, they've never lifted in their life. So they're starting in their late 50s and they're intimidated by the bar. And here you are saying, I love the bar. I love that. I love to hear that of, anybody in our age group, but particularly, female, because that's often, oh no, I don't want to lift heavy weights. I don't want to get big, bulky muscles. And you realize that, first of all, at 58, it's much, much more difficult to get those big, bulky muscles. And second of all, it takes a lot of work to get those muscles. But to not be intimidated by the bar and wanting to lift more and get stronger is a really, I think, great goal and desire for anybody who is aging and attempting to age well.
And I'd say working with Kandace is amazing at, she does. So she said she looks at your form and makes corrections. I worked with Kandace for, it's been a year now. And with the exception of a little escapade with some calf raises, which I overdid, I have never actually, despite how difficult things were, I have not felt anything that felt like an injury or an ache or pain afterwards. Nothing that would say, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. And I think that working with someone who's paying attention to your form and helping you correct things is really essential. I certainly would not have approached the bar by myself in a gym. Wouldn't have known what to do with it.
I'd be curious how many of our listeners know what the Yates row is. So that's impressive that you know that.
Not only do I know it, but I love it, Jeff.
Yeah. Now, do you have any other favorite exercises that you have kind of add to your repertoire through this last year?
I do love doing squats, doing back squats, and the Yates row. Chest press is just fine. Kandace likes to throw the Bulgarian split squat out at me. Now that I have learned to position myself properly without jumping around on one foot trying to get in the right place, I finally started counting my footsteps out. I don't actually mind the Bulgarian split squat so much anymore either. Honestly, I don't think there's anything. I find front squats to be difficult because you have to be both strong in the legs, but also in the arms and the chest to hold the bar up. So I find front squats to be difficult, but once I sort of got through a set of them where I felt like I did them right, I kind of liked them. But I like all of this. I love ball slams.
Okay.
Because then, like, whose head is this landing on? Kandace, has there been anything other than the Bulgarian split squats, which I am now coming around to, that you think that I didn't really respond well to, or I was unhappy with?
I wouldn't say unhappy. I think everything that's maybe challenging, you're like, oh, and then like the next time we do it, you're like, oh, I like these. These are one of my favorites. And it's like every time we do something new, she's like, these are hard, but they're my favorites. And so it's just funny because I was teaching her some cleans, and we were starting to pick it up in terms of like just the movement. I started with lighter dumbbells to just try and get the movement down with the rotation. But after she got them down, we went to the bar, and then we started getting that down quite a bit better. And then with the elbows up, and she would catch it and get the elbows up. She's like, oh, I really like these too. And so it was just every time she'd get it more and more and more, they become her favorites, which I just thought it was great. I just loved it. And so she's gotten really good at those. And then, I'd say that the deadlifts were one of your favorites at one point too. So it's just great. Every time she comes in, she's always game for something new or something cool, and just she likes to challenge a lot. So it's pretty cool.
It seems like the deadlift is one of those big obstacles to get people by. They think of those as only power lifts, and it's for athletes only, and it's not for us aging adults. And once you start deadlifting and you start accomplishing a little bit of weight, it's like, I got to put more weight on, and It gets fun, and it's one of my favorite lifts now. I've never been able to deadlift very well because I'm just so long, and I just committed to it. And, I'm putting up a lot more than I ever did in my 20s, in my late 50s. So my other new favorite is the Zercher squat.
Oh yeah.
If you've done that yet, but it's a little bit, to me, it's easier than doing the front squat because just wrist mechanics and things like that. I can load it up a lot more than I can a front squat. And, I have my wrestlers doing it now too. And, my son is loving it.
I think I saw your son. I saw you post something on Facebook and I thought it was your son doing the Zercher. It was not that long ago.
Yeah, he's putting up about, I think he put up like 295 for 3 sets of, I think it was 2 to 5 repetitions.
That's pretty good.
Or 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So Sue, you look like you were going to say something.
Okay.
No. So what are you doing different now that you have donated a kidney? Have you done anything different in your workouts, or are you still kind of just progressing the same way?
Honestly, I think that we have a new goal in mind, which is lift heavier weights, powerlifting competition. That's pretty far off, mostly because I just like going twice a week and exerting myself. It's awesome. In terms of the surgery prescription was you had to walk 15 minutes 4 times a day, starting really pretty much the first day after surgery. They want you getting up and walking. And I will say that I am walking more steps than I did before surgery. Like, I am actually getting up every morning that I'm not going to see Kandace and taking a 3 to 4 mile walk on the hills. I eat a little bit differently. With one kidney, make sure I drink lots of water. I have to watch for diabetes and high blood pressure. I don't have either of those right now. I don't want to get either of those because that would be hard on my one remaining kidney. Honestly, the surgery itself, I think, is a bigger deal in the short term than giving away a kidney.
Mm-hmm.
The loss of the kidney, your body is pretty amazing in its recovery. The abdominal surgery takes a little bit more time to get over. It's that part of it that's tough. One of the things they do, you have your kidney function tested before surgery, obviously, to see if you're healthy enough to donate. And they actually test it again the day after surgery. And before surgery, my estimated GFR was 87. And not surprisingly, the day after surgery, it was 44. So I'd given away half my kidneys and half of my kidney function had gone away. But 2 weeks later, they test you again. And by 2 weeks later, it had rebounded by 20%. And so it's up to 53. And it will probably continue to rise. By December, I'll know what my new normal is. But your body recovers. Your body only needs one kidney, and most people, and it recovers from the loss of its partner by goosing the remaining kidney, gooses its own production. So, but I have to take good care of that. I'm not allowed to do extreme sports, so there's no rugby, there's no football, there's no ice climbing, which were not a part of my life before surgery either. So all is good.
You weren't planning on joining the rugby team?
No, I did get reassurances that road biking was not an extreme sport. That was the one thing that I worried that I wouldn't be allowed to get on my road bike again. But yeah, so you have to take care of that one remaining kidney. But other than that, I'm just honestly trying to do what I did before surgery and continue to build on that. My biggest worry about surgery was that it would throw everything off, and all this work I had done for months and months and months would be for nothing. And it was so not for nothing. It made all the difference in the world. And I was able to, I don't know, Kandace has this in her record somewhere, but I would say within 6 to 8 weeks after the surgery, I was back with lifting weights where I was before surgery, and I progressed from there.
Yeah, she bounced back pretty quick. We started out super easy right off the bat, like when she first came back in, and I tried to keep as much exercise off the abdominal area as we could. So we just started out with whatever she felt comfortable doing and what she could do in general. And I kind of just gave her the exercises that I decided would be good, but then let her to kind of determine whether or not she wanted to push in whatever it was that we were doing. And so she kind of determined that. we also watched her monitor her heart rate on that as well. And her body would kind of go a little higher with the heart rate than it normally would have in certain exercises. And she's like, I'm tired, I'm done. And so we would just stop and then just do some easy stuff. And then she's like, okay, I rested, I feel good. So then she would jump back into whatever else I had for her for the day. So it was kind of that for first several weeks. And then she kept getting stronger and better. And she bounced back really fast. And was like, I think I can do this. And it was like, okay, Sue. And so she's just always ready to go with that. But since then, what we've done is we've progressed into a little bit more heavier weights. And so we've decreased the reps and increased the weight a bit more just for the strength aspect, just for what she wants to do now. And she's been doing a great job with that. So it's been really cool to see, like, she's pushing more weight than she ever has. And she's just like, let's go. So I'm just going, okay, sweet. Sounds good. I love it. I think it's great. So,
it is great.
Yeah.
I am so much more a proponent of strength training for the aging population than cardio. For years, and I've mentioned this repeatedly on this podcast, that for years, exercise science, we have promoted cardiorespiratory health, and doing cardio, doing aerobic exercise. And what we failed to realize was that we lose function as we lose strength. Even though our heart and our internal organs and stuff might be functioning okay, we're losing some of that capacity to do more.
Well, and bone density too, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So particularly in women.
Yeah.
And so when we emphasize the strength training, it suddenly opens up this whole new world of activity that we can do. And so ultimately we end up doing more cardio without having to do cardio.
Right.
A lot of people, that 10,000 steps is their exercise for the day. And, you can't keep walking that pace. That's why we see older people slow down as they age. And I just love the goal of, I'm going to get into powerlifting. And technically, now that you've made that commitment, you are a power lifter. You're just beginning now to train for your first competition. So, because nobody just, I'm going to be a power lifter, and then they sign up for a weekend event and they go out and they deadlift, 135 pounds or something.
I think she would be close to that, though. Like, she could just sign up and be like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. So
I figure everything I've read says it takes a long time to build up the muscles. So I have I'm 58 and a half. When about time I'm 60, that'll give me lots of time to build all this up, and it will give me something to do for the next year and a half.
Yeah. And it's just something that keeps you going. Having a goal as we get older is really important. So many of us, we stop athletics and we no longer have a reason to be training. And, it might not be, you're not going to maybe go to the Senior Olympics or something like that. But, every time you step out there and you get a PR,
feels great.
You're getting better, you're getting stronger. And for those of us that have not really done that earlier in life, those PRs can continue to come. We can get stronger as we age. Now, if you're starting out, you're in your 30s and you have 1,000-pound deadlift, you're probably not going to be doing that in your 50s and your 60s because your body just can't handle that. But, we can progress. My goal, I want to get my deadlift up to 500 pounds, and I'm struggling. I'm in the lower 400s, which I'm happy with that because I could never do it before. But, it frustrates me that I can't break that and move up. But I don't train specifically for it as well either. So,
well, you might want to work with Kandace about that. Work with Kandace around that.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, the idea of progressing, the other thing that was good about the last year, this was another year of waiting. It was waiting for surgery, but also waiting for the stupid COVID thing to be over.
Is it over?
I don't know. But having a goal and working towards it actually made this last year a really good year. So while the world is waiting, while I'm waiting for something to happen, I'm actually not standing still. And that too, I am developing and I am getting stronger and I can see this difference. So while I'm waiting, I'm not doing nothing. And just making progress is really, it was really rewarding. Yep.
Great. So what are your thoughts going forward? And what are the things that you are doing in addition to lifting weights and altering your diet for the kidney to age well?
So I am putting my work in proper perspective, and trying to figure out, I want to continue to do interesting, meaningful things, but I don't want to wear myself out. I work wise believe that I'm on the slowing down end of things. And I don't think that's a bad idea,
No.
because all it will do is free up all of this energy to do other things. So, kind of putting work in proper perspective, keeping moving, keeping learning, um, just and living. This is one of the things that I learned from the recovery process, just being in the moment. I think we spend so much of our lives looking forward to the next thing, what's going to happen next. And we might miss what's happening right now that's really, really good. And a large part of what I learned through the recovery was that each of those days, while challenging in its own way, was also kind of joyful. I had my friends and my family around me, and I wasn't worrying or thinking about work. I was just walking, eating, sleeping, hanging out with my friends, and having a day. And I look forward to doing more of that as well. I know that goals are good, but sometimes just being in the moment and making sure you're enjoying what's happening right now is also a really good thing.
Sounds awesome. How about you, Sue? I mean, Candace. We'll mess up there. Candace,
I live for the day when I'm indistinguishable from Candace.
there you go. It's possible. You just keep maintaining, and Candace is going to have to give up on some of her energies to bring that in a closer balance eventually. But if you both live long enough, I would say, if you both live well into your hundreds, that difference is going to get closer and closer and closer, and not a bad thing. But Candace, what are you doing to age well? I know you're still pretty young. You're really young.
Wow.
A little older than I thought, knowing that you graduated in 2008 and not, I thought, past 2011. So
For sure. No, in fact, yeah, I'm a little older than what people think. But as far as like, I don't know, I think aging well, it's really important to play. It's really important to enjoy, kind of what Sue said, enjoy the moment of where you're at. I think that that's something that I have to reflect on quite a bit, because usually I am very goal oriented. And I usually have my clients create goals, and I'm like, all right, what's your goal? Let's try and reach it to whatever point we can, as fast as we can. But enjoying the process in it as well, I think is very, very important, especially so if you have somebody where their goal is weight loss, it can be kind of difficult for them if they have a goal and they're like, I need to reach it at this point. If you have that goal and you're trying to reach it as fast as you possibly can, the goal isn't enjoyable anymore, and it becomes a task where it's overwhelming occasionally, and it depends on how it's done. But so enjoying the moment, enjoying where you're at and what you're doing in that moment makes the process of the goal, it makes you reach it faster, because you're not the time frame in terms of like scientifically you're going to reach it faster if you enjoy it. It's not necessarily that, but it's more of like, if you enjoy it, you're going to want to move more. You're going to want to do things outside. You're going to want to like dive into powerlifting. Like, it could be anything, it's just as long as you're having fun with whatever it is that you're doing, and learning and growing and becoming, just going down another road, like whatever it is, just as long as you're, I don't know, doing what you feel like you want to do, or you feel like your drive is taking you forward with it. Like, that's super important to be able to age well, because then it's not a taxing thing on you mentally, and then mentally it transfers out to your body and how you're feeling emotionally as well. So it's just a whole bunch of different things. And for me, playing in terms of like, I want to go play all the time. Like, with my clients, when they're in the gym, we're always playing, and it's just a positive. I love being that positive atmosphere for people who maybe they don't like exercise, or maybe they do, but they don't know how to reach whatever goal they have. Like, I want them to come to my gym. I want to laugh. I want to have fun. I want to play. And a lot of times, like, we'll text each other and be like, "Hey, what'd you do this weekend?" And they'll be like, "I went walking." And I'll be like, "Yeah, I ran into a tree because I was mountain biking." You know what I mean? But it's just fun, and it's just enjoyable to share stories about what it is that you were having fun with that weekend. And so I think it's super important to age well, is to enjoy what you're doing and play. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds great. And hopefully people listening are realizing that you don't have to donate a kidney to make that commitment to kind of getting more fit and, getting better with each day. But any last minute thoughts or recommendations as we kind of wrap up today's episode?
I had fun.
I would just say it is super helpful to have somebody else be your partner in this kind of journey. So I do not think that my personal outcomes could have been nearly as good if I had had Kandace there with me. She was on Team Sue. And I would say that just in general, you don't have to do all this stuff all by yourself either.
It's a good point. I think people that are maybe a bit more intimidated by the thought of exercising and weight training most certainly should seek out, professional help and good professional help. I'm glad that Kandace worked out for you. I knew she would, but you always have a little bit of fear, are my students as good as I think they are? And, you want good help, because there's a lot of really bad trainers out there, and I wouldn't have just sent you to just anyone to accomplish. And especially now, if I had known at that point that that's what you were attempting to do, I definitely would have been, well, I guess I can say I'd be more cautious sending you, because I would never send anybody to somebody who would not be good. But I would definitely be much more apprehensive as to, did I send her to the right person? Is this person going to do the right thing for her?
So, Jeff, that's why I asked you, because I knew that you would. If you gave me a name of someone, that you give me the name of someone that you had confidence in.
Yeah, and if they're one of my graduates, I darn well better have confidence in them. And for the most part, I do. There's very few of my students that have graduated on that I would not have confidence in. So makes me feel good that she did well. I feel like I have a little bit of a contribution to this. So, well, this has been great. I hope that people listening will embrace first, starting exercise wherever they're at, and not be afraid to lift heavy. And put that emphasis on lifting the weights and doing intensive cardio, or doing intensive lifting to benefit the cardiovascular system as well as the muscular system. If you are contemplating donating an organ, whatever your age may be, have that faith to step forward and do it, prepare for it. And, I just always end with keep aging well. So keep aging well. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.